Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Mitzi Hunter, Minister of Education, MPP for Scarborough-Guildwood, and a very passionate supporter of housing, especially affordable housing that benefit the people in my riding of Scarborough-Guildwood. I'm so pleased to be here with Minister of Housing, Chris Ballard, and Minister of Municipal Affairs, Bill Morrow, and our colleague, MPP for Davenport, Christina Martins. We're here this morning to talk about our government's investment in housing across Ontario and in Toronto. I'm especially thrilled that these programs are supporting the more than 5,000 people who live in social housing in my community in Scarborough-Guildwood. We're committed to building and preserving a fair society where everyone benefits and where everyone has a good quality of life, the basis of which is good quality housing. And we're committed to working in partnership with other levels of government to build communities that are vibrant, safe, and affordable, and where people thrive. We've demonstrated this commitment by funding housing programs year after year to help lift up people and make sure that everyone has a place to call home. I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, a champion of Northern Ontario, and first elected in 2003 as the MPP for Thunder Bay Atikokan, Minister Morrow, to the podium this morning.
Well, good morning, everybody. Great pleasure to be here with my colleagues, Minister of Housing Chris Ballard, Minister of Education, Minister Hunter. Thank you for the introduction, and MPP Martins. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to those of you in the audience, excuse me, for being here this morning. It's my pleasure to be here today as Minister of Municipal Affairs and have an opportunity to highlight the strong record our government has when it comes to working with the City of Toronto and municipalities across Ontario. I'm a former municipal councillor, and it means a lot to me to make sure we have a strong and respectful relationship between the province and local governments. I remember a day when that relationship wasn't very positive, and it's one of the reasons I ran for provincial office back in 2003. Since then, we've worked hard to improve the municipal fiscal sustainability position. This year alone, municipalities are benefiting from over $4 billion in ongoing support through provincial uploads and other provincial initiatives. That's an increase of $2.9 billion from the level that was provided in 2003. That represents a 264% increase in funding since 2003. Working with our municipal partners, we've been uploading costs, including social services like Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program, land ambulance costs, and court security. This has greatly improved the municipal fiscal situation for cities like Toronto. For example, the estimated total benefit of the 2017 provincial uploads for Toronto is almost $530 million. This represents about 14% of the city's property tax revenue. We value our relationship with Toronto and remain open to continuing discussions that will enhance the lives of Torontonians. The City of Toronto is unique. It's the only municipality in Ontario with standalone authority to create a broad range of revenue streams through the City of Toronto Act, passed by our government in 2006. Through this act, the city used its authority to create a separate municipal land transfer tax that it now relies on as a critical revenue tool. Since 2008, the city has raised $2.6 billion from this particular tool. But that's only part of the story when it comes to working with Toronto. We've also invested in other areas, especially transit. Since 2004, we have provided over $1.9 billion to Toronto through the gas tax program. We are also doubling that program to provide Toronto with at least $340 million a year for transit, going up from $170 million per year. We've invested more than $10 billion for transit projects like the Mayor's Own Smart Track Plan, the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, the Up Express, and improvements to Union Station, and the list goes on. These are significant investments to help Torontonians get to work on time and spend more time with their families. Our government will continue to partner with Toronto, listen, and respond to the city's needs. I thank you, and I now will invite Minister Chris Ballard to make an announcement and say a few words about our government's investments in social and affordable housing. Chris?
Well, good morning. It's great to be here, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been nearly a year since the Premier appointed me as Minister of Housing. In that time, I've heard from so many Ontarians about the challenges that they face. Like Minister Morrow, I've also served as a municipal councillor, and I can tell you right now, at the provincial level or at the municipal, the measure of any government's priorities are found where it chooses to invest. We know that all governments are constrained by limited budgets and tough choices. We also know that the politician who tells you different is either passing the buck or taking you for a ride. But a government that's truly working for its people invests in those people and prioritizes the things that matter most to them. 2.7 million Ontarians call the City of Toronto home. They expect their government, municipal, provincial, federal, to work hard for them to build a vibrant and safe and affordable community. Communities where they can raise their family. Ontario is committed to just that. Over the next 3 years, Ontario will invest $2 billion in affordable and sustainable housing across the province. In Toronto, these investments include $340 million for homelessness prevention to help Toronto's most vulnerable residents, $130 million to expand affordable housing options so that every Ontarian has an affordable place to call home, and leveraging over $100 million in provincial land value to build new affordable rental units in the city. So I'd like to talk more about that last point. Today, we're standing on land right here that can do more for the people of this province. That's why, as part of Ontario's Fair Housing Plan, the province is taking action this spring to free up provincially owned surplus lands to be used for rental and affordable housing in the City of Toronto. By establishing a program to dispose of surplus sites at below market value, we will be able to leverage new rental and affordable housing units while unlocking over $100 million in land assets. Pilot sites for the program in Toronto include right here, we're standing 26 Grenville Street, as well as 27 Grosvenor, and potentially the West Don lands. Through our Fair Housing Plan, we're also introducing a targeted $125 million 5-year program to further encourage the construction of new rental apartment buildings by rebating a portion of municipal development charges. Working with municipalities, we'll target projects in communities that are most in need of new purpose-built rental housing, expanding rental choice for Ontario families who continue to call these communities home. And at the core of our Fair Housing Plan is the commitment to expand rent control and keep down costs for tenants across Ontario, and of course, right here in Toronto. The Fair Housing Plan builds on the $1.4 billion we've already invested in Toronto toward affordable housing, social housing, and homelessness prevention. And it works in partnership with our recent investments to social housing in Toronto, including $42.9 million for repairs and retrofits. These repairs aren't the kind that make for flashy photo ops or headline news, but they do make for brighter, warmer, and safer buildings for the people who call them home. While some have called Toronto's social housing a wound in the heart of the city, I see these communities differently. I see them through the eyes of their residents who want to feel pride in the place they call home. Whether they live in York, near the Don Valley, by the Danforth in Etobicoke, or out east in Scarborough. Our government is invested in them and every family that calls this city home. Toronto's social housing residents include those living in Toronto community housing. They're seeing the results of our investments through new energy-efficient boilers, lighting retrofits, window replacements, weather stripping, and insulation of outer walls. Provincially funded repairs and retrofits to 26 different social housing buildings across Toronto are ongoing and will be completed by March 31st, 2018. So, going forward, Ontario will continue to invest in social housing in Toronto and other municipalities around the province. As part of Ontario's plan to fight climate change, the province will invest new proceeds from its carbon market into social housing repairs and retrofits. These proceeds are expected to raise up to $500 million for social housing investments across the province over the next 4 years, with $130 million in new funding allocated for the City of Toronto. Toronto, like Ontario, has complex and diverse housing needs. In order to meet those needs, we must continue to work together and deliver for the people of this city. Our government is committed to building a fair society where everyone benefits. Our historic investments speak for themselves and continue to deliver on that vision. As we look to the future, we'll continue to make substantial investments in communities like Toronto, making them safer, more vibrant, and affordable for Ontario families. So thank you again for being here today, and at this time, maybe my fellow ministers can join me and we'll take some questions if you have any. Questions? Come on, Christina, sorry.
Can you clarify if any of this is new money since the budget, or is this all just kind of a re-announcement, clarification of some of the budget promises?
Yeah, this is allocation. The big announcement here today is that these are properties, two of the properties, two pilot sites that are part of that $100 million investment in social and affordable housing in Toronto. So that's really new. But we also wanted to make very clear to the residents of Toronto that we are and have been investing in affordable housing and social housing right here in Toronto.
And is the plan to tear this down, or it's going to be like a retrofit conversion type of thing?
Well, I think that that will be part of the ongoing discussion between the province, developers, and the city, exactly what built form they want to see here.
And what's the timeline for that?
The timeline is this spring. We'll start those. This is one of the pieces of property that will be a pilot. We're here to announce that that it is key to the properties being released here in Toronto. So the discussions will begin as soon as possible. I think that's it.
That looks like it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's
Very
great.
good.
Great
Super.
news. Yeah.